The immovable object versus unstoppable paradox is a classic thought experiment that's puzzled philosophers for centuries. What happens when something that cannot be moved meets something that cannot be stopped? Well, we got our answer this weekend when Arsenal met Liverpool at Anfield. Welcome back, Gabriel here, and it was quite an interesting week for football. We witnessed a masterclass performance from Grimsby in a true David versus Goliath upset against United. I have to say, as a neutral and admitted hate watcher, it was thoroughly entertaining, though I reckon I could have scored a penalty on either of those keepers given the chance. We also got the Champions League fixture list, and I'm starting to think that these randomized computer draws need some serious investigation. Seriously, the patterns are getting suspicious, but that's a conversation for another day. Now onto the main event. Anyone with a working brain could have seen that this clash was going to be tight. I saw plenty of tweets, including Peter Schmeichel, ridiculing Arsenal's defensive approach. And while I understand the frustration, I wasn't shocked. I mean, just look at the recent history of these two head-to-head. It's mostly draws, with wins rarely coming by more than 2 goals. These are two teams that know each other too well. In Arsenal, we're already dealing with key injuries, most notably Saka being their main man out, which fundamentally changes how they approach their game. However, both teams look sharp from kickoff. An early injury to Saliba seemed to completely derail Arsenal's rhythm. However, Mosquera came in and eventually gelled excellently after a shaky start. But you can't blame him. It's never easy playing away at Anfield in a match of this magnitude. The first half was honestly quite forgettable from a spectacle perspective. Arsenal's tactical setup was interesting though. With 4 natural center backs across the back line and 3 defensive midfielders, Rice dropped to be much deeper, receiving and moving the ball between the center halves, almost acting as a third center back. But the player who looked most lively for Arsenal was Noni Madueke. He made some blistering runs and really challenged Kirkes down that flank. What confused me was why there wasn't more of a tactical focus on exploiting Szoboszlai, considering he's not a natural right back. But as he has shown in these past 2 matches as a makeshift fullback, Dominic can absolutely hold his own weight, and what an engine he has. He was the standout player on Liverpool's side, completely shutting down Martinelli, who couldn't get anything going against him. Credit also to Liverpool's backline. They stayed remarkably resilient throughout, even when Arsenal won a total of 8 corners and couldn't convert from any of them. Rice with the outswinger had them attacking corners differently compared to the usual inswing from Saka. Then came the decisive moment, that free kick from Szoboszlai that saved the day for Slotsman, and that was essentially it. Game done and dusted. What struck me the most was how Liverpool found a way to seal the game even after a fairly stiff performance. I think that's what currently separates them from the rest of the title contenders. They've established themselves as a second half team for the first 3 matches now. With the international break arriving, I wonder if they'll be able to maintain this momentum barring any injuries, and also being able to settle the deal for Isak and Guehi should be a massive boost to what is already a stacked squad. So for today's philosophical experiment, the unstoppable force gets a slight advantage over the immovable object. Speaking of weekend redemption, Manchester United managed to bounce back after their midweek humiliation to League 2 side Grimsby. They were the laughingstock for about 72 hours, but they did get the last laugh after a late penalty that you could attribute to just a tired challenge from Burnley. I know United fans were experiencing serious PTSD from having another penalty situation, but Bruno happened to be one of the few reliable takers who'd already scored his penalty twice during the previous game, so it was no surprise when he converted. Although United celebrating like that against Burnley was quite funny. You would think Burnley were world beaters based on those reactions, but at least they won this weekend. More than what we can say for their neighbors in blue. City looked to bounce back after that disappointing Tottenham loss, and the match started promisingly with possession changing hands often. I thought City looked decently good, though not at their usual relentless pace. Haaland almost had a hat-trick of chances not going his way, but he got rewarded with a goal 10 minutes before halftime. That 1-goal lead wasn't convincing to me, and the second half made my concerns clear. Fabian Herzler made 4 changes of around 60 minutes, and this became the turning point of the match. A silly error by Matheus Nunes saw James Milner put away a penalty to become the oldest player to ever score from the spot in the Prem, and Lewis Dunk had to let Haaland know about that record too. Momentum had fully swung to Brighton, and it was only a matter of time before they took the lead through Brian Gruda, who with brilliant footwork simultaneously took out Ait Nouri and Trafford altogether. Yeah, honestly that was the point where I turned the TV off. I don't really have much to say about this City team right now. I'm choosing not to be reactionary like most understandably are. I know it's been a rough 3 matches and this result surely didn't help, but I'm hoping to see what the final squad looks like after the transfer deadline. The next 3 matches will definitely test City's character this season, and I'm hoping to see more of a cohesive side barring any major injuries. So what did you think of the weekend's action? Does your team still need to strengthen up before the transfer deadline? Let me know in the comments. And as always, thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.